Hi, everyone. My name is Susie Post, and I am thrilled to be welcoming you today to Allegan Area ESA's Level 2 COP. This is session 1 of our COP for the 24-25 school year. And as you know, this session is completely on demand. So we're really excited that you're here with us today and ready to engage in this learning. So this is our agenda for the day. We'll start by meeting the rest of the team, the Level 2 COP team. We will then move on to agreeing to some commitments that we'd like to make collectively as we engage in these on-demand experiences. We will then move on to an activity called I'm In to make sure that all of us are in a good space today where we feel like we truly can engage in the learning and soak up as much as possible today in this on-demand experience. Then we'll get into our content, starting with the what, the law, moving then to the why, inclusion and belonging. Outcomes, we're going to talk about some small shifts that we can make that can have a big impact on the lives of our students. Then the how. There will be 3 different sections to that. We're going to dig into some learning around the 3 overarching learning components: access, participation, and progress, and then LRE determination. And we'll end today's COP session with some great learning around assistive technology for Level 2. So I'm excited to introduce you to our team. There are 3 members of our Level 2 COP presentation or facilitation team. First is Anna Weston. Anna is the member district supervisor of specialized instruction, and her information is there for you. She is happy to answer any questions that you might have or chat with you. So she's listed her email address and her phone number there. Gail Evans is our assistive technology consultant for Allegan Area ESA. Gail is an expert at all things AT and AAC, and she is thrilled and excited when local district members reach out to her with inquiries about those things, so please feel free. And then myself, Susie Post, I am a consultant for K-12 special education. Specifically, I work closely with 2 districts, with Plainwell and Hopkins, but I also support all of the districts in Allegan County through professional learning experiences and through the COP. So it's really nice to have you all here, and we're just thrilled to be presenting this information to you today and learning alongside of you. Next, we're going to move on to some commitments that we wrote as a team and that we're asking you to take a few minutes to read through as you prepare yourself to participate in this professional learning experience in this COP through this on-demand format. We realize that this on-demand format, while it is wonderfully convenient and helpful for us as busy educators and busy professionals, we also want to acknowledge that there can be some barriers and some challenges to learning in this way. So we came up with these 6 commitments that we'd love for you to read through individually. If you could pause the video and read through these. And then we would also invite you to choose one commitment today that you're really going to focus on as you dig into this learning. So go ahead and pause the video, read through all 6, and choose one to keep in your mind for today's learning. Thank you so much for reading through those commitments. We are excited to work together with you as a team today, and we are going to commit to those things as well. So, to facilitate some mental and emotional transition from everything that we have going on in our lives, right, professionally, personally, we are going to be engaged right now in an activity called I'm In. This is called an inclusion activity. And this is something that we're all going to do together to kind of get our minds focused and set and ready to engage in some new learning so that we can make this time as meaningful as possible. So the process is that we're going to take a minute to think about and then actually name out loud anything that's on our mind. And then after we name that thing that's on our minds, that's kind of taking up some space in our brains, we're going to say, and I'm in. So I'm going to model it for you right now and participate in this with you. And then I'd love for you to pause the video after I do it. And please do this on your own. And if you're sitting with someone, you can certainly engage in this together. But if you're by yourself, I would still encourage you to actually say it out loud. I think there's some power in like letting this kind of go out loud, acknowledging that this is taking up space and that it's important. And then also saying, and I'm in for this new learning. Okay, so here I go. I am feeling excited for the weekend. Today, as I'm preparing this professional learning for you, this COP session 1, as I'm recording this, it is a Friday, and I love what I do, but I'm also really looking forward to some things that my family and I are going to be doing this weekend. So that's taking up some space in my brain, and that's important to me. And I'm in. Go ahead and pause the video and try your I'm in activity. Thanks so much for engaging in that inclusion activity. So now that our minds are kind of in a space where we feel like we can dive into this learning and really focus on being open to this new learning, I am going to pass it over to Anna, and she's going to be talking about this next slide, which is all about the what of our learning today, the law.
Today we're discussing two key principles in special education law under IDEA, FAPE and LRE. These two concepts ensure that students with disabilities receive an equitable and inclusive education alongside their peers. The law says that FAPE and the LRE, to the maximum extent appropriate, children with disabilities are educated in the general education classroom with children who are not disabled, and that special classes, separate schooling, or other removals from the regular education environment only occurs if the nature and severity of the disability is such that education in regular classes with the use of supplementary aids and services cannot be achieved satisfactorily. FAPE guarantees that students with disabilities receive individualized educational services at no cost, tailored through an IEP program to help them make meaningful progress. In the Board of Education versus Rowley, the Supreme Court established that schools must provide educational benefit, even if not maximizing a student's potential. However, later, in Andrew F. versus Douglas County School District in 2017, it was clarified that these benefits must be substantial enough to allow for meaningful progress. LRE requires that students with disabilities are educated in the general education setting first and proven that it is not beneficial to them. LRE requires that we must try to educate students in the general education setting first with supplementary aids and services. Schools must first try providing supports in the general education class before considering more restrictive options. In Oberti v. Board of Education, the court emphasized that schools must prioritize supplementary aids and services in the general education setting before placing a student in a more specialized or restrictive setting. What IDE implies, case law makes explicit. A child need not master the general education curriculum for inclusion to remain a viable option. The appropriate yardstick is whether the child, with appropriate supplementary aids and services, can make progress towards the IEP goals in the regular education setting. Together, FAPE and LRE ensure that students receive an education that is both appropriate and inclusive. Schools can't deny general education solely because it's challenging. They must support inclusion with resources like assistive technology or classroom aids. The IEP team, including educators, parents, and often the student, collaborate to create this plan to meet the students' needs while promoting access to the same curriculum and social experience as their peers. Inclusion is a civil right. It improves outcomes for all. It nurtures differences, fosters belonging, and it is possible. In summary, under IDEA, students with disabilities have the right to a meaningful education that maximizes inclusion. Schools must create IEPs, ambitious goals to support each student's potential in an inclusive environment. Take a minute now and reflect on an insight or question you have. Record it in your Level 2 Session 1 Padlet. And go ahead and comment and share with others. Let's keep advocating for inclusive, supportive education for all students.
Thanks so much for that learning, Anna. I am excited to dig in a little bit more about the why of this work, really grounding this work for us and helping us to understand why this applies to our work as Level 2 teachers. So the STARTism, I'm not sure if you're familiar with STARTisms or not, but these are from the Grand Valley State University START project. And inclusion is not a readiness model, it has to be one of my top, for sure, STARTisms. So IDEA is clear that all students, first and foremost, are gen ed students. They are general education students first. Inclusion is not an optional thing. Students don't have to earn their way into opportunities, whether that's a gen ed classroom, a friendship, or an extracurricular activity. All students, we believe, can participate and benefit from inclusion with individualized supports. And so with that belief that we hold as a county, I wanted to go into talking a little bit about inclusion and belonging. For me and for many of us, inclusion and belonging are huge topics right now. And the purpose of special education, as you see here, is truly to provide that SDI so that students with disabilities are able to be included and have a place and that they truly belong. And that truly needs to be gen ed first for all students. And so our goal as special educators is to ensure that these students with disabilities can access, participate, and make progress in the gen ed curriculum and environment alongside their gen ed peers to the maximum extent possible. A little bit more about belonging. I think we can all agree that belonging is a human need, that we all truly need to feel like we have a place where we truly belong, where we are accepted for who we are and where we are needed, where we are valued, and so much more. So I have here that belonging begins with presence. It's really hard to feel like you belong if you are never or rarely a part of the array of activities and events that make up the life of a community. And I think this applies really well to our schools and our students. If we say that we believe that all students are gen ed students first, and that students with special needs are given the specially designed instruction that they require, then that means that the general education classroom and setting is the place where they should truly feel that they belong. And there certainly can be other spaces where they engage in learning throughout the day for all students. But gen ed, their classroom or their classes, needs to be that place where they truly feel that they have that belonging, that they belong. To be present is to be involved each and every day in the same places as everyone else in your school. It means that all people have an opportunity to be part of the everyday fabric of school life. So that's our goal, right, as special educators, to ensure that we provide the supports that our students with special needs require in order to truly belong in the spaces with all of the other students. And then a last note here, all people, regardless of academic ability, gender, ethnicity, social skills, behavioral skills, and needs, have the right to be present. This simple fact is the foundation of creating a culture of belonging in our schools. So that is why we do this work. And this work is not easy, but as you can see here, it's worth it. I'd love for you to take a few minutes to read the following 3 excerpts from the GVSU START project. And after reading, you're going to have an opportunity to think and reflect on this new learning. And I do just want to preface this new learning by saying that I absolutely am not intending that there is any shame or any ill feelings put on anyone if these assumptions are assumptions that you currently hold. Okay. We have all been taught certain things, and when new learning occurs, when we know better, we strive to do better. And so there's no shame at all if there are assumptions that you hold that might be listed on this slide right now. But I would encourage you to just have an open mind today, and think about maybe if you can, if your small shift might just be trying to think about things a little bit differently, or being open to a different idea or way of thinking. So take a minute to read through these flawed assumptions. The first one, intelligence can be measured, which also means that significantly sub-average intelligence can also be measured. Second, students who are not able to learn the gen ed curriculum should be taught functional life skills, as the gen ed curriculum is not beneficial to them. Third, students with significant sub-average intelligence aren't able to learn the gen ed curriculum, and therefore they have no need to be in the gen ed classroom. And fourth, being unable to talk is associated with being smart. If a student is unable to effectively communicate, assumptions are based on what they currently know. Here is the second slide from GBSU START project. So this is kind of a way to reframe our thinking. And this is where I'd love for you to just have an open mind and think about if this resonates with you or where this sits with you. And there's no good or bad here. We're all in a process of learning new information and shifting thinking. So I just ask that you would be open to maybe these new ideas and just think about them. Kind of contemplate where you feel like you're at, bringing in your lived experience and your other views to kind of think about where this sits with you right now. And there's no wrong answer at this point. So we're in exploration with all of this. So the new assumptions, and again, I'm going to shift back to that previous slide. So we had intelligence can be measured, and this one, intelligence is not a single measurable characteristic. On the flawed assumptions, students with significant sub-average intelligence aren't able to learn in gen ed, so there's no reason for them to be there. And the new assumption, students learn best when they feel valued, when people hold high expectations for them, and when they are taught and supported well. The flawed assumption, students who are not able to learn in the gen ed curriculum should be taught functional life skills, as the gen ed curriculum is not beneficial to them. And this, on the bottom right here, students have different talents and skills. And then the last one, being unable to talk is associated with being smart. If a student is unable to effectively communicate, assumptions are based on what they currently know. When students cannot currently communicate they are smart, presume they are, and develop their educational programs based on that assumption. So some new ways of thinking. We'll have a few minutes in just a moment to process and think and reflect on these. The next graphic is also from the START project, and this has been really helpful for me personally as I have engaged in this new thinking, this new way of thinking, and this new learning to try to shift my own mindset. So developing an inclusive mindset, some things that I have maybe said before or heard other educators say is that he's just not ready for gen ed. So a shift in thinking is asking ourselves and our team, how can we get gen ed ready for him? The next one, we just don't have the resources. Shifting that to asking, what can we do with the resources that we have? Or how can we reallocate resources? We need more parapros. This one is huge, right? We rely on adult support to help our students, and in some cases that is certainly necessary. But instead of jumping right to we need more parapros, we can think about asking questions like, what can she do independently? So focusing on the strengths-based teaching. And how can we foster more independence instead of adding in that extra parapro or that extra adult support? Instead of this strategy didn't work, we can ask, is there any part of the strategy that did work? And focus on that and building from that. How can we adjust the strategy to work? And there's a note about Paula Kluth's 2.5 Find 20 Ways. That is a great resource if you're looking for some ideas of strategies and supports. The next one, I wasn't trained in special ed. I'm sure you have heard that before, and that is a valid concern. The teachers, many gen ed teachers are feeling like, I don't know how to support this student well. I care about this student. And the special educators, the level 2 teachers, are trained in these skills needed. But it's shifting our thinking and maybe asking, where can I learn more to support my students with disabilities? And that takes vulnerability, which is hard. But we as special educators, as the level 2 teachers, we have an opportunity to work together with these gen ed teachers and to build their capacity and to lift them up and to help them see their strengths and to teach them some things and share our knowledge and skills for things that might be able to help those students. And then the last one, he doesn't belong here. Instead, we could ask, how can I make sure that he has a sense of belonging here? So after taking a look at those 3 resources from the START project, I'd love for you now to do a little thinking and reflecting. So take a few minutes to think about, first, one aha, something that really challenged your thinking, but in a good way, that really kind of made you think about something differently and maybe already is shifting your mindset a little bit. And then I'd love for you to think about a wondering. What's something that you still just aren't sure about and would like to continue exploring or would like to talk about a little bit more, learn more about? So take a few minutes to think about both of those things. And then we would love for you to go to the Level 2 Session 1 Think and Reflect Padlet. The link is included right on our slide deck. The underlined text is the link, it's embedded. And we'd love for you to go to that Padlet and record your thoughts. And then please feel free, we would encourage you to comment on others' thoughts if you'd like. Now, we would, of course, like you to keep all of the comments respectful and positive, and we're sure that you're going to do that since we're all professionals here, and we're all here for the same purpose, which is to learn and grow as educators. So please pause the video and take a few minutes to engage in this Think and Reflect activity. Thank you so much for engaging in that activity. So to continue our learning about the why behind this work, we have a graphic here called Understanding Equity and Inclusion. So there's 4 words here and 4 pictures a picture that goes with each of these terms. I'm going to go through the terms first, and then we'll talk about each picture and what the goal is truly of our work as teachers, as special education teachers. So first, inequality. Inequality is the first picture, number 1, where it's unequal access to whatever we're trying to get, right? Whatever we're trying to gain. So if you see this picture, the one person is standing under the lower part of the tree where there's low-hanging fruit. And all of the fruit is falling right off easily, right down to that person. However, the person on the right has no access to that fruit. It is totally inequitable, unequal, and that person really has no way of gaining access to that fruit. It's totally unequal. The second graphic is equality. So everyone benefits from the same support. So we're putting 2 ladders up there. We're providing ways for both people to access that fruit. Now, I do want to mention that in this graphic, there is access to that fruit, but is it truly equitable access? The person on the left really still has a little bit of an unfair advantage, right? They have the same supports. Those ladders are the same height, so they're given the same supports. But did that person on the left really need that high of a support? And does the person on the right maybe need a little bit more, right, to get equal access? So then we move down to number 3, which is equity. And equity is certainly a goal that we have been striving for as educators, where everyone gets the support that they need. So that support does not look the same for everyone. We know that that man on the left did not need quite as high of a ladder in order to gain access to that fruit. And the person on the right needed a little bit of a higher ladder. So now they're able to access that fruit somewhat equally. That's equity. The last graphic goes even beyond equity to inclusion. And this is where there's equal access with the supports that are needed. So you'll notice that there are even some further supports. It looks like there's some kind of a brace there for that person on the right to brace that tree and kind of bring it down so that that fruit is truly the same on both sides and that tree is truly the same on both sides. And that's providing that equal access with support. So they needed that extra brace or whatever that is to bring that tree down in order to provide that equal access. So that's our goal with inclusion. And I think that's a pretty amazing goal. If we think that inclusion has the power to do that for our students, then I would think we could all agree that inclusion is the way. And that's what we're trying to learn more about and explore today. So research provides that there are many benefits to inclusion for both students with and without IEPs. I want you to take a look at these and then take a few minutes to think about what is one thing from the graphic that either validated your thinking or challenged your thinking. And then please feel free to go to the Padlet again and share this thinking or your thoughts on this if you'd like to. Let's go ahead and pause the video and think about that. What's one thing that validated your thinking or challenged your thinking? Inclusion is about valuing people's unique ideas and lived experiences and ensuring that they feel involved, respected, connected, and have their voices heard. This is true belonging. The graphic shown on this slide is a history of special education, starting with exclusion, where people with special needs were fully excluded from the school and learning experience. Then we moved on to segregation, where people with special needs were not allowed to participate in the learning in the same school or classroom, but they were still given opportunities to learn. So we moved along in progress where we valued teaching students with special needs, but did not feel that that teaching should happen in the same place or space as people without special needs. We then moved on to integration. So further along the line in our special education history, where students were encouraged to be in the same spaces with their peers without special needs, but they were still kind of kept separate, whether that looked like separate classrooms within the school or separate spaces within the classroom. They were not fully included. So our goal is true inclusion. This is where belonging really happens, where students are in the same spaces, working alongside of each other, learning from each other because each member has value, regardless of differences, regardless of disability or not having a disability, that everyone has value and everyone can contribute to this space. That's our goal, and that's what we're working towards. Now, we're certainly in exploration at this point, and we're trying to figure this out together, but I'm hopeful that we can all agree that we want our students to belong and we want our students and value and need our students to be included to the maximum extent possible. So another opportunity to think and reflect. Please take a few minutes to think about, given that we all agree that students with disabilities need to be educated with students who are non-disabled, where do you think that your district falls? And then please go to the Padlet and record your thoughts. Comment on others' thoughts if you'd like to as well. Go ahead and pause the video and take a moment to do that. We believe that small shifts can have a big impact on the lives of our students. And so today, we would love for you to set some intention, which really helps us to activate our thinking and align our actions with a specific purpose to make an experience meaningful. So we're going to engage in an activity called WOW, which stands for Walk Out With. Throughout today's learning experience, be thinking about and identifying one small shift in your practice that you will make in efforts to support the inclusion of your students with disabilities. We don't want you to feel overwhelmed by all of this new learning. We truly want this to be a place where you feel comfortable to think and reflect on your current practice, to celebrate the amazing things that you're doing every day in the lives of your students, because we know that you are doing so many amazing things. And then to just think about, what's one small shift that I can make to keep getting better? When we know better, we do better. But that doesn't mean overhauling our entire way of teaching or our entire practice. That means thinking about one small shift that we can make tomorrow, or one small shift that we can make this year in order to keep growing in this area of supporting inclusion. So the three overarching learning components are listed here. I'd like you to just take a minute to read these three. These three components of a student's day are all equally important for all students, regardless of disability or not. And we believe that because we believe that children come to us as whole children, and that our role of special education is to ensure that students are able to make progress, to access, and to participate in all three of these areas, participating in routines and transitions of the classroom and of the school, engaging in grade level academics and other essential skills, and interacting with others. So we're going to dig into each of these components a little deeper in the next slides. So just a little bit more information about these three overarching learning components. All students, regardless of whether or not they have a disability or not, need to have learning opportunities throughout the day that are related to these three learning components. These components are important in the education of all students, and they contribute to supporting the realization of belonging, active participation, contributing, and learning in the short term and in the long term. So as the team, your IEP team or your team that's supporting any student is considering the whole educational program that's been created for a student, we need to ask ourselves these three questions. First, will the student experience membership in this space? Second, will the student be actively participating at school, truly active participants in their school? And will the student be learning the grade level general education curriculum? The first section, or the first learning component, is participating in routines and transitions. So there's a few guiding questions here and some examples of how we can support students and how we can focus on this area. I'd like you to pause the video and just take a minute to read through this list. The second overarching learning component is engaging in grade level academics and essential skills. Again, I'd encourage you to take a moment to pause the video and read through this list of how we can support and think about students' needs in the area of engaging in grade level academics. So take a minute to pause and read and reflect. And the third overarching learning component is interacting with others. Interacting with others is all about what skills and goals the student could be supported in to achieve that would enable them to independently or interdependently interact and communicate with others. And this overarching learning component is just as essential as the other two. These are skills that all people need in order to be successful and to live a meaningful and full life. So self-advocacy, in order to have their needs met. It's a crucial skill. Engaging in learning tasks and socializing and building friendships. These are all things that we need to be able to do in order to feel like we truly belong in a space. Access, participation, and progress is the purpose of special education. Supporting our students in those three areas is the purpose. That's our job, and that's why we're here. That's why we work so hard, and I know that you do, and you're doing such amazing things. So the purpose of special ed, again, is to provide specific or specially designed instruction, SDI, so that students with disabilities can access, participate, and progress in the gen ed curriculum and environment alongside their gen ed peers to the maximum extent possible. And this is an incredible goal, and one that I'm hopeful that we can all start to shift our mindsets toward that goal. But then we also need to acknowledge and recognize that there are some things that need to happen, and there are possibly some barriers to that we need to acknowledge and start to explore together. So in order to achieve this, these are some things that we must do. Consider multiple reasons why the student is not able to access, participate, or progress in one of the three overarching learning components or more. So it's really about thinking, what are the barriers to access, participation, and progress? What is it that is keeping the student from being able to meaningfully participate with their gen ed peers? And then once we've identified what those barriers are, or what those reasons are, the second question, what does the student need? So focusing on needs versus deficits. So what are those barriers? And now, what does that student need in order to access, engage, participate, and make progress in the gen ed curriculum, instruction, and environments? And that often will take a team to work together, to brainstorm, to figure out how can we meet the needs of this student in order for them to truly belong in that gen ed setting with their peers. So I wanted to provide you with a couple of resources to take a look at as you're thinking about maybe some small shifts that you'd like to make. These are both links. So this is a document that I created in working with some teams to support them in their goal of trying to increase their level 2 students' time in the general education setting and ensure that they're fully supported and that they can access, make progress, and fully participate in that gen ed curriculum along with their gen ed peers and in that gen ed setting. And so this is a way to go through each of your students on your caseload and review what their time in gen ed is right now and make a plan to increase that and make it truly meaningful and ensure that the students are supported. So there's a sample student on here with some examples of ways that you might use this document. So for example, this student is currently in gen ed in their classroom for arrival and morning work, for snack, for read aloud, for celebrations, fun activities, and things like that, which is a great start. But we, as a team, and the level 2 teacher that I was working with here, really saw that this student had some skills and some strengths that they thought they could leverage in lunch. So currently the student is not eating lunch with their gen ed peers. And so that is the place where this level 2 teacher and team really wanted to focus on improving and increasing gen ed time. And so the supports that they anticipated that the student would need were some visual supports to support participation with the routines and transitions in the lunchroom. And then also they recognized that they probably would need some adult support at first to teach and practice those routines. And I loved that this team recognized that this was not, the adult support was not something that they wanted to be permanent. They truly wanted their student to be able to participate in the lunchroom with their peers independently. That's the goal. But they recognized that at first, adult support may be needed, and they would make a plan to fade that support. And then the last column is the action items. So they determined that this speech and language pathologist would make those visuals, and that a para would accompany the student to the lunchroom for the first few days, or as needed. They'd be flexible with that timing to teach and practice routines. So again, this is just an option for you, and you do have access to this. You'll have to make a copy if you'd like to use it. But if this is something that you feel like would be helpful as you think about a small shift that you'd like to make this school year, please feel free to use this, edit it as you'd like to meet your needs. And again, we're looking for a small shift. Each of us are at different places right now. And so some of you might be thinking, yeah, you know what? I am ready to take a look at all of my students' schedules and really dig into where can I improve or increase their time in their gen ed classrooms with supports for all of my students. And to you, that might seem exciting and you might be ready for that. But I want to encourage you to also be okay if you're not quite ready, if you're not there yet. That is fully okay. As a county, we truly are living in exploration with all of this. And so we're all going to be at different places, and some of you might not be in a place where you feel like you're ready to do this at all. Your next step in your small shift might just be in trying to shift your thinking, to explore inclusive practices more. And you might not be ready at this point to make any concrete changes with your students. And if that's where you're at, that is totally okay. Please know that all we're asking is that you just make some type of a small shift from wherever you're at, whether that's in your thinking or actionable steps like this. It's totally up to you. Maybe you're ready to just focus on one student currently. So instead of your whole entire caseload, maybe you say, I've got one student that I really think I can use as kind of my pilot student. And I'm going to try this out and see how it goes with trying to increase that time in gen ed and those supports in gen ed. Again, wherever you're at is great. Meet yourself where you're at and try to grow a little bit. This is another version of an LRE determination document, planning document that teams can use. This is adopted from the TIE Center, using the 3 overarching learning components as a focus here. And it includes a little bit more, it goes a little bit more in depth into the information that teams need to consider when trying to improve the inclusion of our students. And so you can see that this document has a few more columns, including all of the different times of the student's schedule, and then what the gen ed expectations are during each of those times, the student's current skills related to those activities and expectations, the accommodations that are necessary for the student to access, participate, and make progress, and then really outlining with the team what are the goals and outcomes for the student during this time in gen ed. Remembering that we can look at those 3 overarching learning components when we're setting our goals for the students during that time of inclusion in gen ed. The adult response column is a place where teams can think about what adult supports might be necessary and how we would like that adult to interact with that student. And then the data collection is trying to make a plan for reducing that need for adult support. So how are we building the independence of the student? So again, if this makes more sense to you and works better for your needs, then this is an option as well. So I hope that as you are thinking about that one small shift, or maybe a couple of small shifts, that you feel like you're ready to start making, again, whether that be just a shift in your thinking, in your philosophy of inclusive education, or if it is a shift in your practice, maybe using one of these tools or a tool similar to that, meeting with your team and focusing on one student or a group of students to see how we can move towards a more inclusive model of education. Whatever your small shift is going to be, that's completely up to you. And wherever you're at is good and right. And we are here to encourage and support you in that. So I just want to remind you that I am passionate about this work of conclusion and I want to be here to support you as well. So again, my contact information is included at the beginning of the slide deck. Please don't hesitate to reach out if there are any questions or anything you'd like to talk through. And if there's any way that I can support you as you work towards making these small shifts towards a more inclusive way of educating our students. I'm going to pass it on to Gail next, and she is going to help us engage in some learning about assistive technology and level 2 programs.
Thanks, Susie. So let's talk about assistive technology and level 2 programs. For this session, we're going to talk about writing tools, and in our next session in January, we'll talk about reading supports. So let's click on the writing supports link, and this is taking us to a document that I created with the help of a couple of OTs, Shelley Borman from Allegan and Cami Williams from Wayland. And so we created this document that has a ton of tools on it. We wanted one place to find all these tools that you could use to help support writing in your classroom. But we also wanted to give you more support in that. Now I'm scrolling back up, sorry about that. And my favorite column was when we created the column for when to use this tool. We started out by just having a list of tools and where to get them or the directions for making them. But this column has really been helpful in helping people understand when it is that they're going to use that tool. So let's just jump in with the first tool that we're going to talk about. This is the seat desk position. So one thing that is a pet peeve to OTs probably around the world is when students are sitting and they're just like slouching. They're not in a good position for writing. Just by encouraging your student to have the 90 degree rule, so that they're sitting, so their hips are at 90 degrees, their knees are and their feet are, that is going to help support them in handwriting. Something as simple as that. And so something that you should be looking for when a student is sitting at the desk or is at the desk writing, are they slumped? Are their feet swinging? Are they sitting on their legs? Are they even just standing at the desk? We want to encourage students to sit down comfortably and get into a position so that they are in the best place to be handwriting. You're probably already familiar with some of the flexible seating and the slant board. DISM, of course, is a kind of a mat that you would put on the desk, and that would make the paper not slide around. So if you had a student that is one-handed or has difficulty holding the paper still, just having DISM on their desk will help that paper kind of stay in place. This link takes us to some exercises that you can do in the class. So just to warm up for writing. And so of course you want to get the big muscles moving. So doing jumping jacks, but also doing chair or desk or wall push-ups, making tight fists and then open fingers wide and touching thumb to each finger. All of those are kind of good warm-up exercises, but also whenever students are coloring, painting, or drawing, give them the option of being able to write up on a vertical surface. So maybe tape a paper onto a wall, or if you have an easel, just having them color in that vertical way is helping them develop good handwriting muscles. So those are two examples of ways that you could help students doing exercises and or having them sit properly in the desk. You could do those two things without having the OTs come into your room. Of course, we do want the OTs to know what you're doing, but that would be some great things that you could be just doing for all students, and it's going to help benefit everyone. Another tip is there are some writing grasps or pencil grips that will help with handwriting. So this is an example of a bunch of different ones. Sometimes we'll see some classrooms have a box of all kinds of handwriting tools, and so students can come and grab their own handwriting tool. I think as a universal tool, that's an okay thing to do. But we do know that there are students who need that extra support. So they might have weak fingers, they may have perceptual difficulties or tremors. So really make sure that you bring an OT in for some of those more intensive support. But looking at that guide can help. Here's an example of a big fat pen. So there's things that you don't necessarily have to go to a special OT website to find. Look at things in at Target and at Amazon and things like that, just to see some different ways that students can grip their writing utensils. And of course, there will be some students who are struggling to write, but we still need them to explore letters. And so if they can't even make the shape of a letter, how can they explore the letter A, for example? So we may want them to be using rubber stamps and alphabet numbers that are magnetic, just to help them explore letters and be able to do some initial spelling, have some type of output. Okay, so moving on, the next section is on adapted paper writing. And so bold and raised line paper is really important for a lot of students. That raised line is going to help. That means that you can feel a bump, that you can feel that line on the paper. So that will help students with low visions, but also help students who have learning difficulties and messy writers. So here is a way to make free raised line. Of course, you can buy a pack of paper that has raised lines on it. But one idea is glue, and to draw your lines with glue on paper and then let that dry overnight. At least 20 is good. But if you are like wanting to do that all the time on paper and having to continue to do that in paper, you could do that on a whiteboard. And so students can feel that bump on a whiteboard. Another way to feel a bump would be puffy paint or wiki sticks. So just a variety of ways to make that line be more kind of stand out and will help the students to have a little bit better handwriting. This is a free printable. It's free because you do need a color printer for it, but it's called Skywriter and Dirt Digger paper. So I thought it was kind of cool. It's I think teacher pay teachers and it's free. But as you're teaching students letter formation, you can talk about how you are a skywriter. So what letters go up in the sky and what letters are dirt diggers. So a letter G has a dirt digger part of it, right? And so anyway, just some paper that you could do for students to be practicing letters. So here is a tool that you would need to pay for. It's called LegiLiner, but it is a tool that helps you as a teacher. You would be able to create lines on paper, and so students would be able to write on the lines. So here's a quick video. So LegiLiners are number one, awesome, but number two, they do cost money. They average about $15 a piece, and usually you buy them in a pack of 3. And basically, it's a rubber stamp that just kind of rolls across. But those are nice for helping to help students organize their writing. So spacing tools, these allow students to remember to put a space in between words. And so here's this spaceman one. I'll kind of show you what it does. Again, a student would just hold the spacer after they write on a word or write a word, then they would hold the spacer right in between from where they're starting to write the next word. Let's get this picture up here. So here's the spacer in there. And of course, this cost was $25. You get a classroom set of 30. So they're, less than $1 a piece. However, you can make your own. So here's this one is free on Teacher Pay Teacher, where they still have that spaceman and, just the cool factor, I guess, of having a spaceman, but you print and laminate it and you put it on a popsicle stick. And so that now your popsicle stick is the spacer. And so again, a universal tool that is probably necessary for some, but anyone can use it. I'm going to keep going. So here, oh, and this is worksheet adaptation. So you can make your own handwriting worksheets. I won't necessarily go in and make any right now, but basically you can go in and type whatever you want, and then it will make those dotted lines so that the students can trace those. So if that's something that you want to do with your students. This letter formation, these are our OT approved apps that are worth spending money on, according to Shelley Borman and Cami Williams, that can help practice letter formation. What these are really good for, obviously, is for retracing letters, but it's really good to reteach and practice letter formation. So if you have a student that is doing it wrong, then these apps are a great way to kind of reteach and have them relearn how to do it the right way. This section is on brainstorming. So students often who are struggling to write, they also are struggling to organize their writing. And so here's a couple of rubrics that might help. So here's one, again, Teacher Pay Teacher, but this is just a self-evaluation rubric. And so did I use uppercase letters and lowercase? And did I use punctuation? Are there spaces? Did it make sense? You can even go a little deeper on some of the sections. Am I using nouns and verbs? And how's my spelling? And all of that kind of thing. So rubrics can help students be a little bit more independent or gain independence in writing. I'm going to keep going. Spell checkers are available everywhere. So here are some keyboarding support. So this is one of the most popular, or one that I'm asked the most about, is one-handed typing. And so there is a free one-handed typing tutor. And so once you go to the website, you choose if you want left-handed or right-handed. Then the student goes and practices where to put their fingers. It's a typical writing tutor, but just for one-handed. And dance mat typing is a popular one that a lot of people like. This Typeo is one for low vision, and it's pretty expensive, $60 a year. But if you have a student with low vision or who is blind, and we want them to be someone who types, this would be a good investment for them to learn how to type. This section has alternate access to computers, and these first two are actually for iPads. So this Key2Go Plus is an app that you install, and it is actually just like an alternative keyboard on your app. If you were to turn on your iPad and pull up your keyboard, it would still be just about the same. It might be a little bit smaller, but they're really closer, similar in size, but what makes a difference is the visual. And this also has the text here is dyslexia font, so that's helpful. And it speaks each letter as it types, and of course we'll speak the word, and it has word prediction, so it has some other things on there. It's really easy to use. This button would toggle to the regular keyboard, or you would press this again to toggle back to this keyboard. And at $2.99, it makes sense to put these on all of the iPads that you have, just so that everyone has access. Again, a great universal support for students. The keyboard is the same type, but you pay $25. It's a simplified keyboard. It has word prediction. It speaks letters and words and sentences. So it does pretty much the same, but it costs more. So why not stick with the Key2Go, right? And then we have large keyboards for computers. And they can get pretty expensive. But again, if this is what your student needs, then might be worth having one in one of the classrooms in your building or at the media center or something. So the keys are bigger, and the color kind of matters too. I'm not sure how big they are, but they're definitely longer, wider than your typical keyboard. This section talks about how to lessen the keystrokes for when students have like low endurance or low stamina for keyboarding and writing. The Text Blaze is a Chrome extension, and Text Replacement is a feature built inside iPads. And both of them allow you to set it up so that in 2 keystrokes, the student can type, for example, their full name and address or something like that. So it's easy to set up. You just have to think about what it is that the student has to write frequently. And then you put in like a 2-key abbreviation so that when they do that abbreviation, the whole thing types out. Lessens a keystroke. Voice typing and dictation, they're kind of the same. Dictation is built into iPads. It's that microphone that's right next to the space bar on the keyboard in the iPad. And voice typing They both do speech to text. So a student talks and it types for them. So I'm going to show you voice typing here inside this document. It's built into Google Docs. I'm going to put my cursor here, and I'm just going to make my font be bigger so that it kind of sticks out. And then I'm going to turn on voice typing. It's built into every Google Doc, so any Chromebook already has this. You go up to Tools and Voice Typing, and now this microphone shows up, and I will click on the microphone, and now it's going to type for me. And so for free, we now have the ability to do speech to text, which used to cost us hundreds of dollars per computer, and now it's totally free. So one thing that I really want to stress is that although voice typing or speech to text is very easy to do, students still need to be supported in how to use speech to text for educational purposes. So this link will take you to some visuals that will help students follow the rules. There are 5 simple rules for using speech to text. So this is the document that I usually use, but I've made a couple other that are similar. But we teach students to think about what they're going to say and then have them say it out loud so that we can hear them say it, because sometimes we don't know what they're thinking and they don't either. And then have them say it again in the microphone, and then have them check it. Did it write what they wanted it to write? And then fix it if it didn't, and then of course share it if once they're all done. And so a typical sentence that I have them first start with is, I live in a blank house on a blank street. So they have to just fill in the blank. What kind of house, what kind of street? And then I turn on, or have them turn on voice typing, and I have them say that sentence. I live in a red house on a quiet street. And then they have to check it to see if it said, or see if it typed what they wanted it to, and then fix it, and then of course share it with somebody. The other visuals are helpful, like for younger students. I created this one where, or for students who can't really write, then we help them think about what they're going to say. We can either write it in here for them, or they can draw a picture of it. And again, they need to say it, they need to check it, they need to fix it, and then they need to share it. And then the last visual I usually use with older students, and this is, I print off in a printer with sticky notes. And so those 5 rules show up on the sticky notes. This sticky note, it fits right on their Chromebook or on their iPad, works out fine on their cover of their iPad. Again, they have the 5 steps that they need to do for speech to text. Without that, then students, even though it's an easy task, they are just not successful in using speech to text, specifically voice typing or any type of technology that allows. So sometimes speech to text will not work for some students who have some articulation disorders or some ways that their voice isn't clear enough, but you might be able to understand what they are saying. So in that respect, then maybe Vocaroo would be a good alternative. Vocaroo records your voice. And so a student could use this, even though it's a writing assignment. What we really want to do is know what they know, right? And so maybe allowing them to record their voice would be a good option. And this is a nice clean interface. If I were to tell you this website will record your voice, what do you think you have to do to record it? 9 times out of 10, people are going to say you press this button. So I'm pressing it, and now it's recording what I'm saying, and I can tell because the timer is going here. When I'm done, I click on this stop button, and then I have 2 options: either redo it, there's no editing, either redo it or save and share. So once I save and share, now I have this link is the link to the recording. I can send it through email. I can download it. I can just make a copy of it and put it somewhere. So Vocaroo is very simple, but a nice tool as an alternative to writing for some students. Then the last thing I'll show is Cami. It works well on Chromebooks, laptops, and iPads. And Cami is an extension that allows you to take a worksheet and scan it on the copier, and which will send to your email. Then you share it with the student. And once the student opens it up, I'll show you, is a typical workbook page. And so now because I have Kami installed on my computer, I'm going to click on Open with Kami. And so again, it's just an extension that the tech department might need to make sure is on the Chromebooks that you have in your classroom. And then now here is the workbook page. But I click on text box and make sure it's whatever ink I want. And then wherever I click is going to be a text box. So here's my text box. So I can put my name on top if I want, or I can come down here and type whatever it is that I want. I can also kind of move and do a few little edits. So Kami is a great way for students to be able to still type on workbooks, and it's an easy kind of dance to be able to scan in a workbook and then send it to students and have them write on it. So that's it. That's most of the writing tools on this document. Again, make sure you keep the link to that handy so that you can return to this and support students throughout this year and even next year. So that's it for the writing supports. And as I said, we'll do the reading supports for the next session. But now I want you to take a few minutes to think about the assistive technology you saw for writing, even some of the strategies. They don't have to be technology part. And think about those, and what one or two do you think that you might want to look more into? Here is the Padlet that we're having you do your reflection on. And there is one post for the writing. So after learning about some of the tools to support writing, what tools are you interested in to explore to help support students who are struggling to write? But we also want you to tell us about the new information that you're going to try in your classroom, any wonderings that you're thinking about, like how is this going to work? And what is one small shift? What is something that you're going to do to help support the inclusion of your students with disabilities? And then also, of course, we want to know what is it that you're already doing that we need to know about? What are some good stories that and good examples of the way inclusion is happening in your classroom already? And on behalf of Anna and Susie and myself, we want to thank you for completing Level 2 COP. And we'll see you in January for session 2. Bye, everybody.